Construction stopped. Silence fell over Harbinger Lane. Jack's disappearance hung heavy, a shroud over the unfinished building. No one dared speak his name. Fear lingered like the scent of rain. The once hopeful project, now a monument to tragedy. Cranes stood frozen, skeletal against the gray sky. Tools lay abandoned, gathering dust and shadows. Harbinger Lane held its breath, waiting. Locals whispered tales, their voices hushed. Some said Jack had run off, scared, others that the land had claimed him. No one dared search, not anymore. Harbinger Lane had tasted fear, and it wanted more. News traveled, carried on the wind. It reached the ears of a group known only as the Seekers. Historians, they called themselves, but their eyes held the glint of something more. Something hungry. Led by the enigmatic Dr. Eleanor Vance, they came seeking answers, drawn to Harbinger Lane like moths to a flickering flame. They brought with them instruments, books, and an insatiable curiosity for the unknown. Dr. Vance, her gaze sharp and unwavering, surveyed the sight. A thrill, a mixture of fear and excitement coursed through her. This was no ordinary place. This was a place of secrets, of whispers in the dark. This was their calling. Days turned into weeks. The Seekers, armed with maps and old journals, delved into the history of Harbinger Lane. Each page turned, each stone unturned, revealed a tapestry woven with darkness. They uncovered whispers of a forgotten settlement, wiped from existence centuries ago. A community bound by an ancient pact, a pact sworn in blood, a pact gone terribly wrong. The air grew heavy with dread as they pieced together the fragments of the past. The land, it seemed, was stained with a sorrow that refused to fade, and at its heart lay a secret, buried deep, waiting to be unearthed. Deep within the archives of a forgotten library, Dr. Vance and her team stumbled upon a chilling discovery. A detailed account of a ritual, performed under the pale light of the harvest moon. A ritual meant to appease an ancient entity. The ritual demanded a sacrifice, a life for a life, a pact sealed in blood, binding the land and its people to an unspeakable fate. A shiver ran down Dr. Vance's spine. This was no mere legend. This was a warning. The air crackled with anticipation. They knew with growing certainty that the events of the past were not as distant as they seemed. They were standing on the precipice of something ancient, something powerful, something utterly terrifying. Their research led them to a well, hidden deep within the overgrown grounds of Harbinger Lane. It stood silent, shrouded in an almost tangible sense of dread, a well of whispers the locals called it, a place to avoid. Ignoring the warnings, Dr. Vance insisted on investigating. As she peered into its depths, a cold, unseen hand seemed to grip her heart. The air grew thick, the silence broken only by the sound of her own ragged breathing. She saw something down there, a flicker of movement in the darkness, a shape, undefined and menacing. And then a voice, faint but clear, whispered from the depths. A voice that called her name. The house on Harbinger Lane stood silent, its empty windows like watchful eyes. But inside, the walls whispered. They whispered of the past, of forgotten tragedies and unspeakable horrors. The Seekers, their senses on high alert, reported strange occurrences. Cold spots, disembodied voices, objects moving on their own. The boundary between the real and the unreal began to blur. Sleep offered no escape. Nightmares plagued them, vivid and disturbing. Visions of the ritual, the sacrifice, the entity. The line between the waking world and the dream world was fading, and they were losing their grip on reality. Following a trail of cryptic clues hidden within the house itself, the Seekers discovered a hidden chamber beneath the foundation. An air of oppressive stillness hung over the chamber, as if time itself held its breath. Inside, they found remnants of the ancient pact, a sacrificial altar stained with what appeared to be blood, and an assortment of strange and disturbing artifacts. The air grew heavy, thick with the weight of centuries of darkness. Dr. Vance, her pulse quickening, realized the horrifying truth. The ritual had not been a one-time event. It had been a recurring sacrifice, a pact renewed every generation, and they were about to discover just how deep that pact ran. Section 8. The Pact. As the Seekers delved deeper into the chamber, they uncovered a hidden alcove. Its walls were adorned with a mural depicting the ancient pact in horrifying detail. It showed the townspeople, their faces contorted in fear and desperation, offering a sacrifice to a shadowy, monstrous figure. The images seemed to writhe and pulsate in the flickering lamplight, as if alive with a malevolent energy. As Dr. Vance stared at the mural, she felt a cold dread creep up her spine. The pact was not merely a legend, it was a curse, and they, by uncovering it, had awakened it. Section 9, Confrontation. The ground trembled beneath their feet. Dust rained down from the ceiling as the house on Harbinger Lane groaned in protest. The entity was stirring. Panic surged through the seekers. They had stumbled upon something ancient and powerful, something that should have remained buried. But it was too late for regrets. They had awakened a force beyond their control, and now it was too late to escape. The air crackled with energy. The shadows seemed to writhe and twist, taking on monstrous shapes. The temperature plummeted and a chorus of whispers echoed through the chamber, growing louder, more insistent. The entity was close. Section 10, Retribution. A gaping maw of darkness opened in the center of the chamber, pulling everything towards it. The seekers, caught in its grasp, struggled to maintain their footing. Their research, their curiosity had led them to this moment. One by one, the seekers were dragged screaming into the abyss, their pleas for mercy swallowed by the darkness. Only Dr. Vance remained, her eyes wide with terror, her hand outstretched towards the fading light of the chamber entrance. And then, silence. The entity had been appeased, for now. But the house on Harbinger Lane stood, a silent sentinel, a grim reminder of the darkness that lay sleeping beneath the surface, waiting for its next victims. Section 11, The Uninvited Guest. Days later, a lone figure stumbled out of the woods bordering Harbinger Lane. Covered in dirt, her clothes torn, Dr. Vance emerged, her eyes haunted by the horror she had witnessed. She had escaped, but at a terrible cost. The curse of Harbinger Lane had claimed her friends, her colleagues, her sanity. She had looked into the abyss, and the abyss had looked back, and it had marked her as its own. But as she turned to leave Harbinger Lane behind, she felt a chill run down her spine. A presence lingered behind her, an uninvited guest hitching a ride in the shadows of her mind. The curse was not broken, it had simply found a new host.